Yeah.
operated. You know what I mean?
You're going to open anyone as one way or another to treat them.
1/100. Excellent. Some kind of combination happens.
Okay, welcome to the It's More Than Just Money movement channel. My name is Witness Mtaka. I'm your host. We've started. Yeah, welcome. Right, guys, welcome to the It's More Than Just Money movement channel, where we delve into conversations with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are making a difference in South Africa and abroad. Right now, I am in Gaborone, Botswana, at the Pond restaurant, and I'm going to be having a conversation with someone who's very experienced when it comes to financial literacy. He's authored 2 books on the subject. He is an entrepreneur, a business owner, as he also sits on the board of a law firm. And it makes me wonder why exactly he's structured his career like that. Mr. Siatla Ratsusa. I've been getting it right the whole day until now, Mr. Siatla Ratsusa. And I mean, what I've always wondered, especially after hearing you speak, is what exactly your background is. I know you talked about banking, you talked about financial services in the form of insurance, but I'm more interested in how you started and how you were brought up. You know, a lot of people, when they see someone doing well, they focus more on the glory. And I'm more interested in the story behind everything that's going on right now. I mean, you're sitting on a South African podcast now, and that's not a mistake. You know, it's because of your gift and what you've been producing over the years. Did you just wake up and you were this articulate when it came to money? Or was there a certain training your parents took you through? But give us a brief introduction
Yeah.
about yourself.
No, thank you so much, Witness, for that introduction. I think for me, what I'm doing happened by default. I've always, growing up in the village, I come from a village called Serowe in the central district of Botswana. So it's quite rural, maybe mini rural. So we grew up without, a lot of structures like what you'd see in the likes of Joburg, no tall buildings, no double stories, nothing. So we were not exposed to a lot of things, but we were exposed to TV. And, watching TV, there used to be this program called Days of Our Lives when we were young. So in Days of Our Lives, there was this particular doctor called Taylor. She was a psychiatrist. And every time she'll sit there. And when you are young, you are thinking about careers that you want to have in the future. So I would watch the soapy, and this particular psychiatrist, the whole village went to the psychiatrist, right? And she would just sit there and ask a question: how are you feeling? How did it make you feel? And then what did you do? And then when people leave there, they're crying or they're excited, something like that. So I thought this person is powerful, and I want to do something similar to that, right? But I didn't know that going forward, I was going to follow the path of actually counseling and advising people. So by default, I did finance. It was purely by default. I did not plan on doing it. We were just applying for bursaries, and I was qualifying for that, and most of my friends were going into business courses. So I was like, well, I don't want to be the black sheep. Let me go with the guys. So we did finance. And then, immediately after graduating, I was like, what am I going to do? I still wanted to do either psychiatry or law. And then it just so happened that I started working for an insurance company. So in insurance, you meet a lot of people who are coming to make claims, people who are deceased, families are crying, all of those things. So your mindset changes immediately. You start to see real life. So I started to see real life quite early in my career. And I realized that a lot of people had a problem with structure of their own finances. So during that time, I was just learning how to advise people on what to do, which products to take, where to invest their money. And then as that happens, it transitioned also to the bank. When I got to the bank, I was doing relationship management for small businesses. So it's a lot similar to what I was doing in insurance, because then you guide business people on how to prepare themselves for lending, how to manage their debts, all of those things, right? It's still advice. So as time went on, I realized that I was actually doing that psychiatry work, but I'm not qualified in it. I'm advising people, I'm helping people to structure their lives, to structure their finances. So I think when I made the decision to set up the business that I have set up, it came really from all of these different experiences, because I always say that you see, the thing that you are born for, that thing that you felt when you were young, it will chase after you if you don't chase after it. Eventually, if you really locate your life, you will find that you are doing something right now that you had always wanted to do when you were young. You just didn't know how it was going to turn out. So I think for me, by default, I fell into what I'm doing today.
So, and then, in terms of your upbringing, how did it shape your ambitions and your drive? Because you say you grew up in a village, and in that village, there was a time you were watching Days of Our Lives, and that inspired you to want to be a psychiatrist, as an example, right? And in so doing, you ended up eventually being in a business where you are advising small businesses. You find yourself, you're advising people when it comes to insurance. But when it comes to ambition, because it looks like you're a person that's driven, how did your upbringing shape that drive and that ambition?
Yeah, I've written a bit of a story in my book, Masheleng, just on how I was raised and what influenced me to do the things that I'm doing now. In the village, we didn't have a lot of what we would call influencers, people who actually did things that will influence how we think, right? A lot of people were doing the general things. People were going to work, coming back from work. Those who were not working, they were not working, earning grants and stuff like that. But we did have uncles who would visit the village. Every once in a while, this uncle will drive a Mercedes-Benz. And it comes into the village. It's the first time everyone sees this Mercedes-Benz. This uncle comes for 2 days, 3 days, they go. The next time they come around, you see another car, right? So it totally changed how we thought things were supposed to be, because you normally idolize your parents until you see what your uncle can do, until you see what somebody else from another village can do, right? Business people were, they were vilified in our village. We didn't really aspire to be business people because of the conversations that we had our parents saying about business people. Most of them, they walked alone, and there would be stories like, no, they sacrificed a child, or they did this, they have a snake, something like that. So we didn't aspire to become business people, because we thought, no, that is pure evil. And when you look at a lot of business people in the village, they were really the black sheep, because they would have the biggest house. And that house now, when you look at it from a perspective of what you've been told about them, it looks so evil. It looks like an evil castle from a distance, right? But we didn't know that where the snakes are kept. And very few people went into those yards. Why? Because rich people don't have time for chit chat. They don't have time for gossip. So a lot of people in the village didn't like them. So they wouldn't visit them. So most of the time they'll be alone or in their businesses. We only got to understand these things when we grew older, maybe getting to know some of the children of those rich people, and they will tell us, no, the reason why you didn't see us, we were studying in Zimbabwe or we were studying in South Africa. That's why we were not there. It's not like our parents didn't have children. And we would come during the holidays, but when we come, normally we'll go to Vic Falls, or when we come, we'll go to Sun City. So we never saw them. So we didn't really hear the real truth around rich people. I think it's something that kind of shifted how I look at things, and the main reason why we would want to empower people to understand these things, so that nobody is scared really of becoming rich, because there's nothing as beautiful as becoming rich.
So out of that, that's beautifully answered. What are some of the defining moments that you can think about that have shaped your career to what it is today?
I think the biggest moment for me was when I was complete just after high school. I think my first year of varsity. We lost our dad when I was I think doing standard 6 somewhere there, standard 5, standard 6 somewhere there, and it was 5 of us. My mother was a single mother, and she was
You were
working
5 children.
5 children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Were you the eldest? Or?
no. I'm right in the center, number 3.
Sure.
Yeah. So my mom, I think at the time, I think she was 40 when my dad passed on, right? It's only that when you are young, you always see your parents like these big people, like real elders.
They look old.
Yeah. So 40 looked really old at the time, but it was 5 of us, and she was not working. And because my dad was working as an architect, right? So he was funding most of the debt, the structures. We had a proper house at the time in the village, a 3-bed with 2 bathrooms in a rural setting. It's a big thing, right? So she struggled to pay off the mortgage for some time. And I remember we once had a conversation around her selling the property so that we could maybe recover a bit of money, pay off the debt, and then we can go and set up elsewhere. But she was too attached to the property. She thought, your dad actually, he was the architect that actually drew this house, so we are not moving. So it was a bit of a challenge. We would have those conversations. And then when I was doing first year, I remember I got a call from my brother, my eldest brother. He called, he said, brah, where are you? The sheriffs are here, they're kicking doors, they're doing all sorts of things. And I was at varsity, I was broke, I couldn't even get into a bus to go home to see how I can help or comfort or anything, or to help with money or anything. And I think at that point, I think something hit me to say, look, what I thought I desired may have changed a bit. I think I need more. I think I need more security. I need to be, I need to put myself in a position where I can actually help the people that I love when they're in trouble, right? I think for me, that was a light bulb moment. I realized that, as kids, we look at parents like superheroes, and we think they understand everything, and we think they can make all the right decisions. But parents are just human beings. They make mistakes all the time. Some things they don't understand. I mean, what was happening at the time, it was just an issue of restructure. She just needed to sit down with the bankers or with a financial advisor to look at her things and restructure the debt so that it can work for her, right? But she didn't know those things. And some of the things that you always teach, say, look, we had a huge yard, right? We could have built rooms at the back to make a bit of money to assist her, right? But she didn't know all of these things, right? So something like this then happens. It becomes permanent. It sticks in your mind. I can imagine the trauma that could have happened to my brother and my sisters because I wasn't there. They were there. And the sheriffs can be aggressive, more especially when they have been looking at you from a distance and be like, this one's. They think one day is one day, So yeah, that's that for me. I think it was a big turnaround in terms of how I looked at things and what I aspired to become. Otherwise, at the time before then, I was just at school, just enjoying life.
So sometimes building a sustainable or successful life is about moving from one challenge to the next and overcoming it. Purely that's what it is. It's not that you didn't face a lot of challenges. So apart from having faced that family challenge, what are the business challenges that you faced when you are starting out now in business, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So I started business when I was still in the bank. So I was quite comfortable. The salary was good. So it sustained some
how
of the
good
things.
is good?
It was really good.
Really
it was
good.
really good. Yeah. It was really good. Let's say north of 50.
Yeah.
North of 50 in Botswana at my age at the time. It was a lot of money really. I could afford any car. I could afford to stay in any house. So I started the business 2 years before I left. I was doing insurance, so it was quite easy for me to get business, and business was coming. And then 2 years later, I decided, you know what, I think this business is making more money for me than what I'm doing at work. So I think, and also there was a bit of conflict of interest. I was like, I can't keep on staying here. I need to leave and see where this business can go. That year was 2019. So I had a bit of savings, and then my package from work put together. I set up a proper business. I set up an office, a nice building, nicely decorated, because I like to do a bit of interior design. I had paintings there, I had a boardroom. It was looking pretty. And then so yeah, it looked really nice. It looked really professional. But here was the problem.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand then was that the type of business that I had ventured into didn't need people to come to my office.
What business was it?
I was doing insurance.
Okay, there's always been insurance.
Yeah. So then I spent all the money in the aesthetics. Image. And then what happened?
Wait, when you say insurance, do you mean insurance brokerage?
Yes.
Insurance brokerage. Okay.
Yes.
You need people on the field.
You need people on the field. You have to also be on the field, right? Because I was literally starting out. So what happened during, just before, you remember COVID started December of 2019. It was the same year.
Yeah, towards 2020.
Yeah.
Into 2020.
Just when the business was about to pick up, COVID happened. I had no cash, nothing, right? All the money was spent in the office. The office had to be shut down. We had to stay at home. And at the time, our business was very difficult because we were not even permitted to go and see people. So you couldn't write business, right? And most of the insurance underwriters locally, they want original documents. They don't do soft copies. So you had to go and get the client to sign, collect the documentation, and submit it to the underwriter. So we couldn't do that. And then also we couldn't do presentations because my greatest skill of getting business was really doing the presentation. So I'll do a presentation to people like this, 100 people, and then I'll write 10. That's a huge success for me, right? I couldn't gather people. I couldn't put people together.
To make money, you must gather people in rooms like this.
To make money, you must gather people. And at the time, remember, I was working for a corporate. We had good interest rates. That were running for our loans. I was working for a bank. So when I had left, I had to go to commercial rates. So the interest kind of doubles from there. So it was very difficult for me to afford my loans. So what happened during that period, I had to experience repossessions, cars, threats on the house. And at the time, you can't do anything. You can't even promise the bank anything. When they say, when are you paying? You're like, guys, I'm home. I don't even know when these lockdowns are going to be over. I can't even guarantee that I'm going to be able to pay next month. So during that period, I was friends with a lot of lawyers. Not my friends, but lawyers who were tasked with coming after me. I was friends with a lot of lawyers. A lot of sheriffs would call. I got to engage with such people. For the first time, I learned what it feels like to go to court. That was my whole experience during COVID as these things were happening. So I realized one thing during that time, and I think it was good that it happened at that time. Because I was just leaving work. I couldn't go back to work because no one was employing during COVID.
They didn't know what's going on.
They didn't know what's going on. So I didn't have that option, right? So I had to think. So during that period, I was like, this one income thing, even in business, is too dangerous. That's when I started writing Masheleng. I wrote Masheleng during COVID. Masheleng started selling. And then I started,
You wrote Masheleng while going through Masheleng?
While going through Masheleng. Yeah, so
What inspired the name?
Masheleng.
Yes.
Um,
Was it a response to the sheriffs?
no, I
Or,
did.
or it was just
I
you
didn't.
ignored all of that and said, let's write a book,
I didn't even
address
name
the
it.
subject.
I didn't even name it. I was writing a book. I didn't know what the title was going to be. So before COVID happened, there was a TV program of a friend. He was running a morning show. And then he was like, look, dude, you have a lot of content to give on finance. Can you come over? We can create a program and then you can just teach finance maybe for some 10 minutes, 15
I was
minutes.
trying to help you out.
Well, at the time, I was still at the bank.
Oh, when you were still
Yes, I was still at the bank. So it was just a thing of content to say, look, because I was writing a lot at the time, I was not doing videos. I was writing a lot, yes, on social media. So he was like, no, you write good stuff, people respond to your stuff. Why don't you just come and speak? I was like, I'm not a TV guy, and he kept on saying, no, let's try, let's see how people are going to respond. So when we started the program, we were, juggling around with the name of the program. What are we going to call the program? He was like, no, let's just call it Masheleng because you speak about money and you speak about it in the local language. So Sheleng resonates well with Botswana. So let's just call it Masheleng. And then we decided to call it Masheleng. So when I was writing the book, I was lost in how I should be, titling the book. And then I was like, wow. But now people know me from that program, and it's Masheleng, and I run that program. Let me just call the book Masheleng. And then I called the book Masheleng. And then, with business sometimes you never know. I mean, I didn't know that Masheleng was going to be Masheleng that it is today. Right now, it's so difficult to an extent that I can't even tell people my name and they remember it. They have to call me Masheleng. Right? Wherever I go, people like, Mr. Masheleng, Mr. Masheleng, That's the problem with branding, eh?
Branding.
Right now you can't wear yellow suit.
I can't.
They want black.
So then you write the book. Was the writing of the book in response to the fact that you realized that some doors had been closed for your insurance company temporarily, by the way, but you didn't know it's temporary anyway?
I know.
And you wrote the book in response to that?
No.
If we can't do that, let's set up another thing. Let's write a book.
Yeah, the book was not in response to that. It was really, I wanted to kill time. I had too much time. We spent hours at home every day. For a month, 2 months, I was like, I can't just sit. I have to do something. So initially, I put together some of the articles that I wrote on social media. And then I was like, let me try to create a story around these articles. And then later, it was not coming together. And then I was like, but I think I have a really good story to tell about my life and my finances, right? Everything that we have been speaking about now, losing the house, how I grew up, being raised by two parents who were middle income earners, who had no investments, no properties, no ideas around business and stuff like that, and I know that an average person comes from that background. So if I can write a story of how I lived and how I overcame that eventually with time, then maybe a lot of people will resonate with that. So that's really how Masheleng was birthed.
Okay, so when you look at your industry, what are some of the things that you wish every entrepreneur knew?
I think uniqueness, it's a special thing, when you tap into your unique features, because how many people understand finance? How many people can speak finance? A lot of people can speak finance. But what is then unique about how I teach finance, right? I make it quite relatable to people because I link it to my story of life. And no one can copy my story of life. It's my story of life, right? So when other people are setting up and they're trying to set up something like Masheleng, I'm always confident that they can't do it the way that I do it because Masheleng, it's my story, right? So all of my businesses are built around my story. So I always tell guys, you know what? You are unique. Stop copying other people. If you are a loud speaker, speak loudly. Trust me. there's a market of people who want loudspeakers, right? If you are a soft-spoken person, there's a market of people who like soft-spoken people, right? But we have this thing of thinking that there's an ideal avatar, of a human being that we need to be creating that says this person is for everyone. There's no one like that. I mean, some of the biggest influencers right now that we know, they have maybe, who are speakers, they have maybe a couple of millions of people following them. But in this world, we've got billions of people. We've got over 8 billion people. So if those guys are supposed to be what we must mirror, why don't they have 2 billion people in their platforms? They don't.
Or even one.
Or even 1 billion. They don't. Uniqueness is very important, but sometimes it can take time because you need a lot of belief. You need to really believe that you are unique, you are special in a certain way. And then when you try to throw that to the market, you see how they respond. You will have 1 or 2 people who are going to say, you know what, you touched me here. I like the way that you speak, right? Can you try to do this? Can you try to do this? But trust me, if I was to speak like Vusi Tembekwayo, I would fail terribly. I would fail terribly. He's very good at what he does, but that is not my style. I have to use my style, right? If I was going to try to speak like you, I would fail terribly. And every time when we go to speaking engagements, you'll always outshine me because you are being yourself. So I think that is the problem that we have with a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're not tapping into their uniqueness. They just want to do what has been written there to say, this is what we need to mirror.
So what are then the biggest myths that are there about your industry that people have believed for many years?
In finance, if we speak to the African child, one, finance has always been a European thing.
Yeah. Dilo tsa makgowa.
Dilo tsa makgowa, for us, our interest was maybe we could do construction, we could do this and that, right? But finance has always been dilo tsa makgowa. Even the books that we still read today around finance, we tell a lot of dilo tsa makgowa. But I think for Africans, what killed us the most is this general belief that black people are meant for certain industries. And there are certain industries that actually control the world as we know it, which is mostly the media. And we have taken finance to the media because it is the influence that we need to give to our people so that our people can then see that this is actually possible. So we use media to speak finance. We use media to disseminate the message of finance in the African perspective, right? So I think for us, it has been a thing of trying to kill those myths of saying, look, the finance industry is for certain types of people. I mean, look at banks. Who owns banks? Look at insurance companies. Who owns insurance companies? Look at fund managers. Who does fund management, right? These are industries that control economies. And black people are not in there. But you'll find them in there working most of the time, right? So if we can have an understanding around industries that actually control the economy, I think a lot of black people will actually start, doing wonders. And finance is just one of them. I was just fortunate to have been inducted into financial services quite early, in my career.
So, do you have some pivotal moments where you've had to take risks, especially risks that you think the normal person wouldn't take, that actually changed the trajectory of your career?
One would have been me leaving a good job in corporate with 5 kids.
You had 5 kids when you left.
No, when I left, I had 4. When I left, I had 4. I have 5 now.
You and your father, same WhatsApp group.
You have to mirror your father.
If I was to mirror my father, I'd have 14 kids. And I still have one.
No, you have a long way to go.
I have a long way to go.
Yeah, so that was one of the risks. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it was a big risk. I have never known anyone who does business in my family. Business was a totally new concept to me. And the only stories that I knew about business was of people who had tried and failed. Right? That uncle who tried and failed, and then they got bankrupt. Those were the only stories that I had. So I would say that was a big risk for me. But being an entrepreneur, I think the greatest risks that I took, and I'm not trying to get anyone into trouble to try and do things the way that I did it. Balancing my commitments to pay off my debts, my personal debts, and growing the business. I think that was one of the greatest risks that I think a lot of people don't have appetite for. So I had payments of about 35 to 40,000 a month that I had to make on my mortgages and my other loans. About 45,000 every month. And during the time when my business would make, say, 50 or 60,000, I had a choice to make. Give the bank 45, remain with 10 or 15 to run operations of the business, or put the entire money in the business, try to accelerate the growth. I took that risk. And I did that for quite some time because I knew that I was not attractive to lenders. So the only money that I could rely on was the money that I was making.
So you had no choice but to make money.
I had no choice but to make money. And when I had the money, I had to decide properly what I'm going to do with that money. I also have a family that has needs, right? I have to balance my business. I have to balance my debts. I have to balance the family. All of these things had to be balanced. So I think because I had great intentions of growing the business and I knew that this business was going somewhere, I took those risks. You know what I said? I said, I'm going to risk this. I will fight with lawyers until the business can pay both the lawyers and the banks at the same time. But if I don't invest in the business will die. If the business dies, I die.
There's nothing you can do there.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I reinvested a lot in the business, and I don't do a lot of real estate investment because I don't think I have made enough access liquidity to be able to buy real estate. So mostly what I do when I make money, I make sure that it's put into the business. The next steps of the business are put in play.
What are some of the things you reinvest in within the business? Is it systems? Is it machinery, if there's any? Is it more staff members? Is it marketing? Is it social media? What do you invest in? Or what did you invest in at that moment?
Yeah, so initially, when we were just doing brokering services, I would buy cars for guys to be able to move around, right?
So equipment. It's one of
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
get equipment. And then when we started now doing social media and realizing that when we are doing social media, we need less guys on the streets.
Because the message gets
Right?
there.
Because the message reaches people in their homes and then they call the office, right? So
Yeah.
we started now investing in equipment. So we'd buy proper cameras, we'd buy good systems for sound, and then we'll engage engineers. I have a full media team with a producer, a director, cinematographers, and then a full marketing team, right? I've invested in that. Because for the content that we produce, the quality has to be that high because the people that we are appealing to are corporates to fund our projects. And corporates are very particular. And I know them so well because I work for them. They're so particular about how their brand is represented, right? So we invested a lot in the equipment and in the people. So that's our money really goes towards payroll, and equipment. That's where most of the money is going. And then we have also accelerated our social media now. We have engaged consultants who are helping us outside the country. We also have graphic designers. And these guys, they're quite expensive.
Yeah.
But we invest in them because we know what they can produce for us today can work for us for the next 2-3 years. So it's a huge investment. So when we put 200,000 in, we know that the value is probably going to earn us a couple of millions going forward.
So you said something quite interesting, right? Which begs the question. At first, you invested in the business, the office, the aesthetics, and the business failed. Now it sounds to me you are reinvesting because through the social media and the growth of the business, people are calling the office, so they can't call a non-existent office.
Yes.
So are we going back into investing into the office now? Is the time ripe for that?
No, the time is definitely ripe for that. As we speak right now, we are restructuring the entire office. We are setting up 2 studios in the office. We are setting up a webinar studio also, revamping the receptions and all of those things, because now we expect people to come. Because we invite guests to come for interviews, and when they come in, they have to see that this is actually a real business that operates. So we are spending a bit of money there. And to someone, it might look like we are wasting money because we are spending quite a lot, engaged an interior designer to do the works for us. So it's in hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. For one program that we do, we can recover all of that money before the season even ends. So for me, it's not a thing of, because I've seen what other guys have done in the media space. They've gotten opportunities to get good jobs. And every time when the money comes in, they forget what makes them money. They buy the car, they buy the house. But what they really need is a studio. They need lights. They need people who can continue to produce, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to sustain even a season of any program. We have seen guys struggling, running around looking for cameras because they couldn't buy a camera, and they're running around with a Range Rover. You can imagine. Why don't you just sell one tire and go and buy a good camera? So we don't want to make that mistake. We understand that as a black person, you have to work twice as hard to prove that you are actually good for the money when it comes to business. So we don't want any one of our clients to second guess us and say, no, we are not sure about this, guys, right? We want to prove over and over that we are capable of delivering at that level all the time. And that means that I have to sacrifice my own personal, enjoyment of life for some time. I'm still young. I'm doing 40 this year. Hopefully in the next 10 years.
You don't drink, ne?
Huh?
You don't drink.
You mean the good stuff?
Yeah.
When it permits, when time permits.
You look like someone who's 30 years, man, not 40. Means you're taking very good care of yourself.
No, we try. Health is very good.
So how important is it to, I don't know if you want to continue in the thought of you still young, or would you like me to move to the next question? Because I interrupted you.
Yes. So what I was trying to say was, right now I have the energy, I have the time, and I'm still building networks. So it's not really time for me to be enjoying money. When maybe mid-40s, late 40s, my networks will be solid also. There'll be, successful business people, ministers, maybe president or something like that. And when that time comes, I need to be resourced. So that's really what I'm building towards. And that's what I always encourage young people to say, look, when you are young, you have the energy, you have the time. Use it to rake in resources that you will need in your 40s. But you know what they do? They play when they are young, and then when they get into their 40s, they want to be serious.
Yeah.
You are serious without resources.
Without networks.
Yeah.
And no rich person wants to be friends with a broke guy. That's not resourceful. Plus a broke guy that's 40 and unresourceful and okay, let me not say more. I get what you mean, because in your 30s or early 20s, we can forgive you for not having money and resources
Yeah.
and not being smart.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, he's still young.
Yeah.
But when you're 40 plus, you don't have money, you don't have resources,
Yeah.
you don't have friends that are successful, and you're not smart.
It's a problem.
I see where you're coming from. So how do you stay ahead of your competition in such a competitive business scale?
It's just consistent capacitation.
Yeah.
Consistent capacitation. They say you don't know what you don't know, so you keep on learning. And when you learn, you realize that you really don't know a lot of stuff. So we are never satisfied with what we are currently doing. We are never satisfied with what we are doing. And at times it looks like maybe we are just being wasteful by trying to, to step ahead and like right now we are using certain types of cameras. And already the team is looking at the next new models that we need to get, because we don't want a situation whereby now all of a sudden we are supposed to be changing the ones that we have and we are broke at the time. We don't have the new stuff, right? We are constantly upgrading that, upgrading systems also, and also creating programs that we know might be needed in the next 5 years. We start it now. We start the proposals now. We start, conceptualizing it now. We start spending a bit of money to see if we need a resource that can help us with that, right? Because this is what happens as you age or as your business gets older, right? Everyone is benchmarking from you if you are ahead. And if you don't invest in the future, they will catch up with you. And when they do catch up with you, it's sad because you had a head start. And your advantage should have been that now when they come in, they depend on your resources for them to be elevated. You see?
Because you're leading the path.
You are leading the path. If you can't do that, they will then directly compete with you. So you want to be able to be the one supporting them as they come up. You know, when I speak to, when I'm training, when I'm doing training and I'm training groups of people who are working, I always tell them that, the advantage that you have right now that a young person doesn't have is the fact that you started first. That means you can only show that by the resources that you have attained over time and the skills that you have learned over time. Otherwise, a young person comes, at a time when technology is advanced and they might accelerate their growth and surpass you. But they can't accelerate buying land. That can only be the advantage of those who started earlier, when the land was cheaper.
Yeah, if
Right?
they have money.
If they have mine, right? But most of the time, for any generation, right now we are complaining that land has gotten expensive. It will be way more expensive in the next 20 years, right?
Oh.
So if you don't do it today, you won't have an advantage in the next 20 years. So complain, but still do it. Complain, but still learn. Complain, but still build a business, right? Don't just complain and sit. Because otherwise, maybe if you are lucky, we can capture you in one of our stories. You can be a storyteller. And then we can capture your whole story about all the regrets of your life, if you are fortunate. But otherwise, people who regret things, they just stay under a tree and then they speak to a couple of friends the whole day. Nothing is happening there.
So, when you talk about your legacy, what legacy do you want to leave behind, both in business and personally? I mean, you've got a powerful mindset that says, in the next 20 years, in the next 20 years, in the next 5 years, it seems to me you're a progressive thinker. You're thinking ahead. So what legacy do you want to leave?
I think for me, I want to leave an Africa that has pride in what they have built. I've been listening to the news. A lot of African leaders are really mad at Trump. And understandably so, because of the policies that have been working for them, right? But truth is, Trump is looking out for his family. And you can't expect another man to be feeding your family to an extent that you complain when he stops feeding you. If a man is feeding your family, what stops that man from taking your wife? So that mindset, we have to kill that mindset, right? We have to become dependent. So this education, as we give it to young Africans, to all levels of African people, we are saying, look, we can't be comfortable living in a nation where you are rich and your neighbor is poor. That's the story of Africa. Yeah. If I'm rich and you are poor, you are my neighbor, I'm not safe. My children are not safe.
You can't comfortably drive your Bentley. Man.
You can't. And your children are going to get into relationships with those neighbors.
And you won't
They
stop
will be
it.
your children before you know it. And you won't stop it. And whatever you thought you were hiding from with your big boundary wall, it will now be coming legitimately into your house.
As your grandson.
As your grandson. So we need to be careful about these things, right? We see, you look at the road infrastructure in most of Africa, potholes everywhere. But presidents are driving moving in private jets and big convoys and stuff, right? They are developing. Their people are not developing. When the people are not developing, there's no progression for the entire nation. And there's no safety. That's why a lot of Africans want to move overseas. Yeah. Because overseas people have built these things by themselves. An average person, maybe in Europe or in America, understands some basics in finance. Some basics in finance, right? So it improves the standard of living. It improves the conversations that are had. I mean, if you go to any developed country, whoever you meet, it could be a security guard, you can actually have a conversation with them. You can talk politics with them, and they will reason. You can talk a bit of business, even if they're not in business, and they can reason. But in Africa, you have to look around for someone to have a proper conversation with, right? So education for me, I think is key. If there's anything that I need to leave behind, it has to be that education. And with the content that we produce on different social media platforms, we know that it's going to outlive us. You know, in 20 years to come or in 100 years to come, people will still be refreshing those videos to listen to those ideas again and keep on developing themselves.
So what's next for you and your business in the next 5 to 10 years?
We are setting up a university. Right now we are registered to do short programs locally here. We've set up a business in South Africa. But right now we are working on an online university, which I think we should be able to launch the soft courses one before the end of Feb, and then hopefully by mid this year, the university will be fully registered. So that's on the part of training and development. And then on the media space, we are creating programs that hopefully we will be able to put into the South African market and also look at other areas because we use mostly Tswana. You said earlier that South Africa alone has got more than 5 million Tswana-speaking people. I actually heard that Limpopo alone has over 4 million Tswana-speaking people. And then the region of Southern Africa, we have about 10 million. So we have a big market, and we haven't really tapped into it.
If you combine Limpopo, Northwest, Free State, technically all those people are speaking Sotho, which is a form of Tswana.
Which is a form of Tswana.
Kisipedi.
Yeah.
And then Honale Setswana, and then Honale Sesotho. That's Tswana.
That's Tswana.
You'll hear each other. So if a Pedi person can hear you.
Yeah.
They're not Tswanas in Limpopo.
Yeah.
It's
a Pedi, yes. But so we say Tswana because it's just same language, twisted in different ways. Yeah. So we are really looking into getting into the region because for us it's not a Botswana movement. For us it's an African movement. And Help, please.
Continue. Continue. It's fine.
And for us, it's really an African movement because you can't run away from Africa. Africans will always, they either come to you or you go to them for business. So we are educating in a way that impacts people in different areas. And social media has been very, very useful. We have had a lot of reach on social media. So wherever we set up, we won't be introducing ourselves when we get there. When we get to South Africa, they already know our content. We get to Lesotho, they know our content. So it's not an introduction. It's a way of saying, now I'm set up here. I'm with you. So that's really where we are going this year and in the future.
How can people connect with you, follow your journey, and get involved with your work?
Yes, on social media we are called Masheleng. Masheleng, it means shillings. I think in
Kenya.
Is it in? Huh?
In Kenya.
Yes, in Kenya. In Kenya they call it shillings. It was also I think it's also shillings in the UK. Yeah, so that's Masheleng in Tswana, or in the local language. So it's Masheleng on all social media platforms. We are very active on Facebook, very active on TikTok. We are starting out YouTube, slowly, but we want to become quite aggressive this year on YouTube. So if you wish to reach out to us, just go to any one of those links, sites, and then also, our numbers are there. All the contact information is there. You can just reach out and then we engage. We are looking for partnerships all across Africa. We are looking for partnerships. We've partnered with some guys in Joburg. We've done a seminar at Vets. We are doing one this year in Sun City. And we are hoping for more. Lesotho also, we are doing some work there. So people should, feel free to reach out and say, look, I'm setting up something here. I think we can work together. We are always open for business, always.
Amazing stuff. If you had last words to say to your young self, maybe you're advising your young 21-year-old self, and you are looking through that camera, and you had the opportunity to speak to yourself again, what would you say?
I would say, had I known that the glorious times are not when you are young, but when you are 40 and 50, I would have saved a lot of money. I would have invested a lot, because I believe at this point I would have been really, really far. Whoever thinks that I'm far, it's not even a fraction of what I could have attained if I used my time and energy and the money that I earned in the past. So if you are young, you just need to understand something. No one expects to see you driving a Range Rover as a young person. No one expects you to be staying in a golf estate as a young person. But trust me when I say, when you do 1050, everyone expects, the universe expects that you be driving a car that is conducive for your back. You need to be staying in a house that is conducive for your health. You need to be eating the right type of food and going for the right holidays. That's why we call them the golden days. So don't squander your money now. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's watching. Put that money aside, invest well, and wait for the right time when your investments have matured.
I had to eat a pineapple listening to that. It's so powerful. Powerful. My brother, I for one, appreciate the movement that you are on. Like I said, when more people learn about financial literacy and they buy properties and they grow and they scale, we get to have customers. You know what I mean? So when people are poor, you don't have customers, my brother. So you need people to afford so that you can create different kind of products for them so that you can prosper and your country can prosper and Africa can prosper. If Botswana is prospering, Zimbabwe is prospering, South Africa is prospering, Namibia, Ghana, Angola. Ultimately, we can have a prosperous continent and a prosperous world and add to the enjoyment of this world. So I appreciate the movement that you have. I appreciate you taking time coming to the It's More Than Just Money Business and Property Seminar and actually being open to partnership and being open to engaging. So from me and our audience, I say thank you. And if you are watching online and you are not inspired, I don't know what is going to inspire you. I hope you've been nudged to think outside the box, to reinvest in your business, to reinvest in your growth, and to think in terms of legacy in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And if you haven't subscribed, please click on that subscribe button, click on that notifications bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you haven't bought, you're in Botswana, you haven't bought Masheleng or Principles of Wealth Creation, the 6-part series, please head out to their social media platforms and their website, purchase the book, support their work so that they can continue to do more work. If you haven't read It's More Than Just Money, I'll just say you're missing out, you know. And then secondly, I'll say you need to head out to our websites or even click on this description box and find out how you can purchase the book. Thousands of people have already started reading and benefiting from being able to take what they have, build businesses, build property investment portfolios. So we are here to add value to whatever you need to be doing. If you feel you need to start a business, we're here to support you. If you feel you need to get into property, we're here to support you. Even if you feel you want to take a wife, we're here to support you and let you know how you can get married in the right way, using the right type of legal structures. Now, from my team and I broadcasting from the Pond Restaurant in Gaborone, Botswana, It's More Than Just Money. We'll see you again in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.